Hello. Let's make this large so I can see myself. Hello, 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 everybody. It's Saturday. How are y'all doing today? This is your girl Bridget, and I was sitting here um listening to some live videos on Instagram and watching everybody share their gift of music. And I jumped on another artist Instagram page and I was listening to him, and I was listening to a young lady ask the artist a question about where he was at the time that he wrote a song, and it reminded me of something that was in my book. And I said, wait a minute, everybody is sharing their gift with the world and talking about what they have done and how they was feeling, and spending some time just sharing with the people. And it hit me, excuse me y'all, I'm trying to grab my phone, but everybody was just sharing and sharing, and I'm like, wait a minute. Hey Harold, how you doing? um Hope all is well with you. uh just I decided to jump on and share from the thing that I've done, the things that I've done from my experiences, because I know that it could help somebody. And I titled this live, I Got Away, because I'm talking about, let's see, let's find the camera. I Got Away, my book. If you all did not know, most of you do know that follow me, um, who know that I am an author, and writing has been a passion of mine since I was a child. I started writing poetry um, in middle school and won poetry competitions. That was a thing of mine early in life. And my daughters both are some eloquent writers, and they are writers in their own right. But I wanted to just jump on and share a little bit. I wanted to read a chapter out of my book about um this would be chapter 3. Let me make sure I'm telling everybody right. Yeah, this is chapter 3 in my book called I Got Away. And if you thank you, Harold. I have been I think I was the author before we met. Harold is a one of my trucker friends. Um I think I had already written my book by then. I can't remember. But thank you. I wrote this book about, let's see, it's 2020. I wrote this book originally about 4 years ago. But I redid it. I redid the cover. Originally, get close to the camera. Okay, there we go. I redid the cover. Um and I redid the back. I put my picture on the book on the back, because my first book didn't look anything like this. The first I Got Away, but I redid everything. I revamped it because, um, as an author, for those who write, you know, you have to constantly share, you know, your information with other people, or else no one knows. And then, as a truck driver, I was away from people a lot. So I had to depend on social media. I had to depend on word of mouth. But since I've been home this year, I've been able to physically share my book and physically talk to a lot of women who have been through some of the things that are in this book. And for me, this is just one part of my story. This is not even the entire thing. And most women and men who have read this book have could not put it down. Like, it's a book that once you start reading it, you don't want to stop. And I'm not saying it just because it's my book, but that's what I've heard. Go to Amazon, check me out. They'll tell you, other people will tell you your reviews. I don't want to always just, you know, toot my own horn, but I really wrote the book to help somebody, because domestic violence is a big, big, big problem. People are dealing with domestic violence right now, on top of a world pandemic, and some of that is a lot to deal with. The pandemic has everybody's attention, but trust me, there's a lot of domestic violence going on right now because somebody can't work. Somebody has went back to a bad situation just to get through this situation, and they're saving face. They're dealing with things because they don't have anywhere to go, and they don't want to. Nobody wants to be stuck in a shelter at a time like this. But I will say this: if you are in danger and you need somewhere safe to be, if your home is not safe, please find somewhere safe to go. Whatever you have to do, be smart about it, because I understand this part of the book that I want to read to y'all tonight is a relationship that I was in Atlanta. I met this guy when I first moved to Atlanta. I met this man, and he was in the music industry for a very large mogul in the music business, and I was impressed by that. I was young, in the club celebrating my sister-in-law's birthday, and I met this guy in the club, and I just really thought that I had met somebody good, because how many of y'all know you meet the representative, you don't meet the real person. You don't meet the real person when you meet somebody, especially somebody who has something to hide. So that's something that I've learned. But I entitled this chapter "The Monster," and I'm gonna read the introduction of, or I will read the history of the title of my book first, so I can give you a little bit about what this book is about. And it says in this book, you will see subtitles that are called husbands. I put myself in the place of the woman at the well. When Jesus asked her where was her husband, she answered and said she didn't have a husband. Jesus said to her that she indeed has had 5 husbands, and the one she was currently with was a husband that was not hers. And I was like the woman at the well. May not have been, well, I'm going to read this right. I, like the woman at the well, may not have been legally married 6 times, but I have given myself to men completely as if they were my husbands. Jesus was highlighting something to her. She was searching to fill a void in her relationships with men, and that what she was searching for would never suffice. How many have said, if I can find the right man, I will be complete? Jesus wanted to show her that she had access to completion without a man. This is the true well experience. And I talk about well experience because that's my first book. So if you follow me, I encourage you to get well experience first. Get well experience first, and then I Got Away as the second book. But some people started with I Got Away, and I mean, I've had people tell me to reading I Got Away made them want to fight. But I'm going to read this to you, and if you have any questions for anybody that is watching, you can put your questions in the chat, or you can inbox me. And most of all, if you can relate to any parts of this story and you need to find ways to get some help, please privately message me, and we can work on getting you some help. Okay, this chapter is chapter 3, which is husband number 3, and it's entitled "The Monster." I gave the guy a call after leaving the club, and I told you I met this guy in the club. I gave the guy a call after leaving the club that night, and we made plans to meet each other. He didn't live too far from me, and we met the next day. He was from Brooklyn, New York, and he worked promoting new artists for the local record label. His job was to ensure the artist's music was being played in all the happening spots on a regular basis. He began to take me with him for certain events, and I met several famous people while with him, and it was an amazing experience for me. I had superstars calling my cell phone, and I was really impressed by this. I am a lover of music, so I fit right in when I got to attend events. After us dating for a few months, he asked to move in with me. I agreed to this. I had a roommate, but she was like family, so I didn't think it would be a problem to her. She had her male friend residing in the apartment as well, and the apartment was in my name, so I just gave the okay for this to happen. When he moved in, things began to get a little crazy. My roommate's boyfriend was my coworker, and he also had a private thing for me. This caused problems when I had my boyfriend move in as well. Because my roommate's boyfriend didn't like this, he began to lie to my roommate and tell her I was jealous of them being together and he wanted them to move into their own place. My roommate and I practically knew each other as children and we share nephews. She was like my sister, and her boyfriend was causing such a problem between us because of his lies. The lies got out of control and they decided to move out. While they were moving out, they had taken a stereo system that belonged to my boyfriend, and when I asked them to return it, they refused. I then called the police, and there was a big fight between me and my roommate. We were literally on the ground rolling over a stereo system. Sad, y'all. It was real sad. But when the police arrived, there was nothing they could do to make them give me back the stereo system because we had no receipt showing where I purchased it, and so they left with things that did not belong to them. While we were fighting, my boyfriend left because he could not be involved in situations involving the police while driving the company van. The record label he worked for is well known, and that would have been bad publicity. When he returned home and found out that his stereo system was gone, he went ballistic. He began to pace through the apartment saying he was going to kill my roommate. He went into the bedroom in the closet and came out with a double barrel sawed off shotgun. My heart dropped to the floor. He grabbed me and said I was going to get his stuff back or he was going to shoot me. Tears immediately flowed from my face. He started calling me weak and demanding that I tell him where my roommate moved to. I didn't know where she moved to. Her aunt was my babysitter, and he was threatening to shoot up their house, and I begged him not to do that because my children were there. I frantically started calling my roommate and begging her to bring the stereo back. He was in a rage, and I didn't know what to expect. When I couldn't get her on the phone, he picked me up and he threw me down in the bathtub and he walked out the house with the gun in hand, saying he was going to find my roommate. When he left, I watched him pull off and I ran out the door and ran to the bus stop and got on the bus. I had no idea where I was going, but I had to find some help. I was calling every male in Georgia that I knew, but I was afraid to call some of them because I knew most of the guys I knew had a liking for me intimately, and I was torn in between asking for help or just running away. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go where my children were because I didn't want him chasing me with the gun and endangering the lives of my loved ones. I was upset with my roommate, but I didn't want him hurting her either. I rode all over town on the bus and the train, and then it began to rain. I decided to reach out to a friend, but he was not home when I got to his home. So there I was, scared to death and nowhere to go and afraid to call my family at home because they couldn't get to me in enough time for me to get away. I decided to go back to my apartment and hopefully he would be calm when he returned. That entire night, I was not able to sleep. I just couldn't believe this had happened to me. I had endured this with my ex husband, but not to this level of crazy. I was totally afraid. Now this is one part. This next part of this chapter, I don't think anybody may have any children up, but I do not advise children to listen to the next part of this chapter, especially those of you who know me don't have the children listening. This may be too much. The second part is called torture. I had a big problem on my hand. I have a man with a very big weapon in my home whom I invited in, and he had keys to my home that he wasn't giving back. Things were getting crazier every day. I decided to confide in my coworker about what had happened, and she told me and my daughters to come to her house until I could get some help. So while he was gone, I packed some things for us and went to her house. I was so relieved to have some help. We were gone for a few days, and he had been calling my phone asking where I was, and I wouldn't tell him where I was. Somehow he figured out where I was and showed up at her house beating on the door, demanding I come out. He had the gun and was threatening to shoot into her house. There were children in his house, and I didn't want him to shoot into the house. I stepped out and I talked to him, and he said I had to leave with him because he was not living without me. He said he would not harm me or anyone if I would just come home with him. I didn't believe him, but I left with him because I didn't want him hurting my friend and her children. I did all of this without the children knowing what was really going on. He never acted crazy in front of the kids, only he never acted crazy in front of the kids. Only I saw the gun, and even my friend didn't know he had a gun on him when I left with him. That day, he took me and my girls shopping to make up for his actions prior to that day. For a while, it seemed things were back to normal. I still was afraid of him. He suggested one of his friends become my babysitter so I didn't have to associate with my former roommate's family. I didn't like it, but to keep peace with him, I did whatever he wanted. He introduced me to this woman and said that she was just a friend. She would come to the house and watch the children, and then it was a problem for her to come to my house, and so she kept them at her house. After a few weeks of keeping my children, she confessed that he was having sex with her, and she felt bad because she felt I didn't deserve this treatment from him. She didn't know I was very afraid of him and was not desiring to make him angry in any manner. She was not afraid of him, and she decided to get back at him. One night, while I was working, she kept the children at my home, and he came home from the club while she was there, and he passed out drunk, and she stole all of his money while he was sleeping. She was there when I got home, but he was still asleep, and she left very rapidly when I got there, and he woke up a little after she left to realize that his money was gone. It was another episode of anger. It was a little less dramatic this time because the children were there, and his brother was there as well. So him and his brother concluded that this girl had robbed him. She vanished in thin air and was never seen again. Now I was stuck with no babysitter and forced to stop working. Things got worse by the day. He would come home from the clubs totally drunk and pulling out the gun just to threaten me with it. He blamed me for the girl robbing him, and since he couldn't beat her, he beat me. He got up one morning as I was preparing to take my daughters to school and daycare, and he asked me why was I so weak? Why would I just let him hit me and not fight back? I just stood there dumbfounded. Was what was he really thinking? I eventually said, I can't overpower you, so why fight back? He just shook his head and slapped me 16 times in the face, and then asked me why was I so weak and wouldn't fight back. He beat me so bad on one side of my face, I looked like an alien and had to go outside like this to take my child to school. My oldest daughter asked me what happened to my face, and I told her I had an allergic reaction and my face was swollen because of it. I got on the bus and the people were staring at me, and I just cried. I was a prisoner in my own home. That night, he went to work, and I decided to watch a movie in the living room on the laptop because I had no television. I let out the sofa bed and started watching the movie. When he wasn't there, when he wasn't there, it was my peace time. The girls were asleep and I fell asleep watching the movie. I was awakened by him yelling at me about why was I asleep in the living room. He had a guy with him that worked on his promotional team, and I was asleep with just a t-shirt on, and I didn't know I was going to fall asleep in the living room. I was exhausted from being slapped so much earlier that day. He started to accuse me of having another man in the house while he was gone. I told him nobody was in the house, but he did not believe me and went into the room and got the gun. He said since I like to sleep around that I had to, I hope ain't no children are listening, I had to suck his friend's penis. And I stood there pleading with him, and he aimed the gun at my head and told the guy to lay on the sofa bed and demanded I began giving him oral sex. I followed his demands, and he took my panties off and he began penetrating me from behind while I gave his friend oral sex. I'm going to stop there because the book gets a little deep. And please, 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 I hope you don't have any children watching. But listen, this relationship was hell on earth. I almost considered that one worse than when the guy tried to kill me, because the guy that tried to kill me was not, I would say, continuously abusive to me. He snapped pretty much. But this particular guy literally tortured me in my own house every day. He made it to the point where I couldn't work a job. I had to stay home. And eventually, if you get the book, you can read the rest of it. I sell this book for $10. $10. And for anyone, that if you're in the Mobile area and you want to get the book from me, just let me know. But it's hard to read that. It's very hard to read that. It's very hard to even experience something like that and then have to share it again with other people. But to be pretty much raped at gunpoint and abused day in and day out, this went on for months. And in the book, I tell how I got away from that. But that's just one aspect of domestic violence and how things can start out really, really good and end up really, really bad, really, really, really quick. This man caused discord. It wasn't just him that caused discord between me and my roommate at the time. My roommate at that time was my sister-in-law, and we had known each other since children. And it was just a lot of things that had happened, a lot of stuff that, this was years ago, y'all. This was years ago, but it was a lot that had transpired. And since then I've talked to her after that to share what had happened. And it was a lot of things that happened to me in that house. I literally had to walk away from everything, with nothing but a couple of crates of clothes for my children. But I walked away with my life. And to make it out of that, and I mean to actually be to the point where you're being raped with a gun to your head with bullets the size of D batteries, that is beyond traumatic. And so I can honestly say that I'm so grateful at this point to be on this side telling the story. But I tell the story not to depress anybody, but to share with women. Listen, first of all, we have to be very, very wise when connecting with anybody. That goes for men, that goes for women that you're friends with. You have to be very, very wise. Ask questions. My mother used to tell me all the time, Bridget, you don't ask enough questions. I was just so trusting. I was so loving to so many people. And I just automatically gave them my trust without asking any questions because I felt like asking questions was being in somebody's business. But when you're deciding to allow someone to move in your dwelling, you need to ask all the questions under the sun. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you, not to have anybody in your home, but you need to know a lot about the person that you are allowed to lay in your home. This man had a shotgun in my house, and I had no idea that it was there. None. He could have killed me and did whatsoever to my girls. And at that time, tonight, while I was watching another live, it's a artist. He wrote a song that made me think about that time in my life. I was at a point in my life where I literally was asking God. That day when that man hit me 16 times in my face, it wasn't just like little slaps. I'm talking about he was slapping me so hard it was like with the force of 10 men slapping me in my face 16 times. And every time he hit me, I was asking God to just let me die because it was so painful to stand there and I'm just like, okay, God, I've messed up so bad. How can I even go back from this point? I messed up so bad in my life because I knew better. I grew up in church. I grew up seeing, I didn't have that type of relationship with my dad was good to me. My stepdad was good to me. I didn't have that background. So how did I end up in that? I don't know. But a part of me was well, I do know how I ended up. I won't say I don't know. But at that time I did not know. How did I get to that point in a relationship where I felt I'm in the house in a dangerous situation. I'm like, I'm going home to this every day. This is my house. This wasn't his house. And this guy had even taken my phone. So I couldn't, after I left my friend's house, me and my friend, she's my friend to this day. My friend, my sister to life. I thank God for Chastity. Chastity has been there for me for a lot of stuff. But she did not know that I left and went back. He had told her I didn't want to talk to her no more. But she was smart enough to know that that wasn't me talking because he told her that it wasn't me. And it was people that didn't give up on me because they knew I was in danger. And so I titled this book "I Got Away for a Reason," y'all. It's a very, very instrumental book. If you know anybody that's dealing with, domestic violence in any form, I call myself all the time a walking miracle. That's why, these things that are going on in the world now, if God could keep me through that type of direct harm, I know God could keep me through this. I don't allow it to disturb my peace because I've been through some stuff already. I've been to death's door, and I haven't even wrote a book about the actual guy who attempted to take my life with his hands. You know, just I've been through those type of relationships over and over and over again, and I had to get to the point where I realized I first had to acknowledge my role in all of that. I didn't ask questions. I trusted too quick. And if a person that really cares about you, they will answer every question you have. It will not annoy them. If you're asking somebody questions and they become annoyed with you, if they become annoyed with you from you asking questions, then that's a red flag to me. Y'all can let me know how y'all think about this when y'all watch this. If you're not watching live, you can let me know in the comments when you watch it. If a person becomes annoyed with you asking them questions, and this is somebody that wants to be in intimate relationship with you, that is a big red flag. Because a person that wants to get to know you will answer your questions as well as you answering theirs. Don't allow it to be a one-sided situation. Allow them, find something in your mind to ask them. You want to know about them. You want to know about their family. You want to know about their background. You want to know about, how they feel about challenges, and you want to know how they respond when you say no. I was the yes girl. I never said no. So when I said no, men flipped out on me because I always found a way to make the man in my life happy because I learned that from thinking that I was supposed to give just my boyfriend, husband privileges. And no, don't give your boyfriend. Let me get over here. Boyfriends don't get husband privileges. They don't. No, if they want that privilege, then they'll do what it takes to gain that, and they won't have a problem with that. A man that honestly loves you will not have a problem respecting you. A man that loves you would never, ever, 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 ever put his hands on you. Period. Never. And in my opinion, if a man does not love himself, God, and his mother, another big red flag. Another big red flag. Big, big, big red flags. And even after I got away from this dude, had moved home, got a house, back on my feet, back in life, this man called down to Alabama threatening me. Even after I was gone. And by that time, I had a little courage because I was at home. And I was like, you coming to Mobile? Come on. When you get here, some people got something for you. But come on. And needless to say, he never showed up. He never showed up. But I had to realize my role in all of these relationships because the common denominator was me. It kept happening repeatedly because something on the inside of me was attracting this to me. The low self-esteem, the not feeling worthy, the really just wanting to be the yes girl all the time was attracting that type of individual to me. And I had to take responsibility for that and work on myself. That's why I'm so glad for personal development. I'm so glad for meeting people in my life that introduced me to personal development, that introduced me to working on myself, to introduce me to really, really loving Bridget. And I don't know how many, I can't see how many people or if anybody is watching this. I'm just sharing because I saw so many people getting online sharing their gifts with the world, and I just decided to jump on and share a little bit of my book with y'all. If you catch this video and anything that I've said or read, if you like the book or would like to know more about how to get the book, just contact me, send me a message, and I have a few books here with me, but the book is on Amazon. It costs more on Amazon, but if you're here in Mobile, I have a few. I think I have like 5 here in Mobile. They're $10. We're not supposed to talk to each other, but we can make a transaction. If I gotta leave it on the porch, we can make a transaction with no touching if you want to get the book. But I appreciate everyone who has already gotten the book. Those women that I was able to reach out to and connect with who have read the book, who have told me that it helped them so much to see that they were not the only ones going through this. And they were not, because, as a woman, for me, I had a big, big desire to be in a relationship, where I was loved. I had a big, big just hunger for love, and I was trying to fulfill that outside of me. But as my sister Crystal West would say, my sister Crystal West tells us all the time, the love that you need, need the most. I had to drink my water. The love that you need the most comes from inside of you, because inside of you is where God is. And until we tap into the love that God has given us already, you know, after I was released from the hospital, after in 2008, I was almost murdered. This happened December 8th, 2008. I stayed in the hospital 2.5 months. And once I was released from the hospital and got home, I heard the Lord say to me that you were looking for me and I was there all the time. You were looking for me and I was there all the time. The love that you're looking for so desperately is in the breath that you breathe right now. the breath that God is supplying to you and to your life right now, that's where your love is. And until we learn to tap into that love, we're not able to fully give ourselves to anybody else, because when God says that He's a jealous God, He won't have any other God before Him. God, little G. That means a man. That means family, children, the dog, the cat, the whoever. God would not have anybody before Him. And not and think about it. If you're in a relationship and you have a husband, your husband is not going to want you to be taking up being best friends with another man or another woman and put that person before them. How do you think your husband will feel? Well, God feels the same way when we get into these relationships and want to make the men or the women the gods of our life. We're not supposed to do that. God wants us to come and find our first love, which is ourselves. And to love ourselves is to love God fully, because you recognize that your temple is the your body is the temple of the living God. This is where you will find God within. So for me, the Lord said to me, I had been looking for love in all of these places when He was there all the time. So think about it in your life. If you're finding yourself experiencing some of the same things repeated over and over again, you may want to take a look within. India Ari has a song called Slow Down, and it says, slow it down, baby. You're going too fast. You got your hands in the air with your feet on the gas. You're about to wreck your future, running from your past. You need to slow down, baby. You got to slow down. Slow down and realize and recognize. Because I know in times like these, I done got quite a few text messages, inbox messages from people all of a sudden they're in love because of the pandemic and they just want you to come over, disregard everything that's going on. They just want you to come over and just be their quarantine boo. And that is no. I had to say no for me. Now, I don't know what it is for you, but I had to say no for me. Why? Because now I realize when it's something that's showing up that I don't like, then I have to do I have to stand in the mirror. I made the mirror my best friend, Layla Hathaway. Y'all got to listen to that. I made the mirror my best friend. I stand in the mirror and I have talks with Bridget. You know, we have meetings. Me, myself, and I have meetings because we have to get this thing together. Listen, we got to get this thing together. We can't be out here in these streets like that. Because I love me. And because I love me, I stop myself from getting on that train wreck. Hey, the book says I got away. So I read y'all a little bit. I had to stop because that's a hard part to read in that book. But that is something that I think that if you haven't read the book, I think you would enjoy it. It's a very good read. And I work so much for other people now. I haven't written anything new in a long time other than poetry. So in this time, honey, I may just have the opportunity to write another book. In all of this time at home, in isolation or separation or quarantine, as we call it, I may have time to write another book. We'll see. But I hope that you enjoyed this time, and I hope somebody looked at this video. If you're busy, somebody may be in a online club right now. They may not be listening to nothing I'm saying, but I hope something I said was helpful. As always, this is your girl Bridget. Y'all have a good night. Be safe. Blessings and love to you all. Bye bye.